anything that gets casted inside this item needs to be loaded at the same time. And go to the reference viewer. It relies on the third-person character. It's a back and forth, and this is called a hard reference. All of a sudden, now we are not dependent on that pickup. What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be looking at casting and why you shouldn't do it by looking at integrating multiple systems together. So to start, I've got these items on the ground and I can interact with them, which will add them to my character. And if I come over here to this box, you can see this one says interact. If I click on this, you can see that the little message pops up at the top, but nothing is happening. If we take a quick look in the interactable actor component here, you can see here that when you interact with it, it calls this onInteractDispatcher. If I select this here, it has this interactable component, but because it's a scene object, there's nothing referencing that actual dispatcher. So if you want to have level specific interaction like that, you can go up here and open your level blueprint. Let's not worry about this for now. And then in here, right click and add a reference to what you had there. Drag off of here and go get component by class on interact. And then if you go assign on interact, it will create the event for you. And anything you want to happen when you interact with that can be right here. So now whenever we press this, we'll see two messages appear. However, the way that I actually recommend doing this sort of thing is by creating a custom class with that component added to it. You'll see here that I've set up that bind on begin play. And if I go to the class settings, you'll see that I've made this an abstract class, which means I'm never going to be adding this specifically to the scene itself. Instead, you're going to want to derive for it, such as this pickup item here that I'm using for those weapons. And you'll see that when I call pickup, which is called in that blank interact function here, that's going to cast to the character and add the item. So this sort of cast is bad for multiple reasons. If I go over here and right click on that pickup item and go to the reference viewer, and down here, because of that cast, it relies on the third-person character. And the other reason you don't want to have a lot of casts in your programming like this is because it stops you from being able to migrate systems that are supposed to be enclosed within themselves into other projects. If I go over here, right-click on this and say Asset Actions Migrate, you'll see here we need to send the character, the mannequin, send the essential animations for the sword and shield, send the whole interaction system, everything. We need to send the item system, which is fine. But then we've also got this chamfered cube here that's dependent on the parent class. And then we have to send everything from the third person folder as well. We don't really want that. If I come out here to our content and I go to my interaction system, for example, click on migrate that, you'll see that we still need to send this chamfered cube. So one thing we can do is actually just come in here and make sure that this is set to not have a default mesh because we're never going to be adding it to the scene directly anyway. Now, back to the task at hand. If we come to the character here and click on the character's reference viewer, over here, it's got this pickup item. So not only does the pickup item depend on the character, it's a back and forth, and this is called a hard reference. You do not want that, and that's why you try to avoid casting at all costs. So one way that we could avoid casting is using a blueprint interface. If I go back over here to my item system, you'll see that I've created that here. You can just go into blueprints and you'll get blueprint interface. If I open that up, you'll see I've added two functions, an add item and an has item. We'll look at that in a minute, but what we want to do is go back to our character here, and in the class settings, go over to implemented interfaces, and then look for that item system here. And now you'll see that we get this drop down over here. We have the add item and the has item function. The add item is actually an event. Then we can just delete this and replace it like that. Now if I come back to the pickup item, rather than doing this cast here or this add item, I'm just going to drag off of here and say add item. And we've got this BPI item system. This is the blueprint interface call. If the incoming actor doesn't have this interface implemented, you don't have to worry, nothing's going to happen, it's not going to freak out. But if it does, then you can access that function without having to cast to the object. And now that this is set up, if I come back over here to our character and go to the reference viewer, all of a sudden, now we are not dependent on that pickup. However, there is another problem with the way that this is set up here. Right now, we're sort of overstepping part of the simplicity of having this component here, this backpack component, which is supposed to manage all of our items, by creating a function on the character and having it do everything to add it to the backpack. If we go to that backpack here, you'll see that it has the add item event set up, and it also has this has item function. And so we want to be using this functionality at all times. We don't really want to have to send that back to the character. And the way that we can do that is by using a function library, which I've also set up as well. If we come back over to the item system, you can just right click, go to blueprint, and you'll get this blueprint function library. And for this, we've got two main concepts. The first thing you want is you want to be able to have a function that can get a hold of the component that you're trying to reference. So this is a base function that will take an actor. It'll get all of the components of type backpack. We can send an index to make sure we know which one we want. And then we're going to send whether it's valid and the backpack itself. Then we also want some finer functionality. So we've got directly adding an item to the actor, which is going to add it to their backpack. And we've also got checking to see if the actor has an item, which is going to check to see if their backpack has the item. Even if we're not having that cast, it's still good to try and make sure everything is self-contained for when you want to send it somewhere else and use it in other projects later. So to incorporate that, we can actually just come back to our character here, go to the class, and I'm going to remove this. That's going to make this a hard function, which I'm just going to delete, and I'm going to delete all of that as well. And then back in our pickup item, I'm also going to delete this, and then we can drag off of here and say add item to actor, and that's going to be the function library item system, which we're sending that actor into, and you should see that everything is still set up over here. If you found that helpful, please like and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.